Oh,
Hold on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today's guest is Mr. Richard Washington. Richard is a labor and employment and criminal defense attorney out in New York City, and this doesn't even speak to the level of services that are available with Richard. Richard does a wide array of legal services. He's an attorney at law where he works with not only labor law, but he also works with real estate. Him and I have done a couple of real estate deals in the past. Richard, it's crazy how long it's been since we last spoke. The last deal you and I did, we're talking back, way back. What are we talking, like 2010, 20, no.
it's about
20,
16, wasn't it?
2016, right?
4 years ago.
Yeah, about 4 years ago. That's how long it's been, man. It's good to see you again.
Likewise,
And
man.
I'm
It's good to
glad
be
you're
seen.
alive and you're breathing and the business is thriving.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be on, man.
Yeah, man. How has COVID been treating you? How has COVID been treating you and your family, the business? Talk to me.
Well, I mean, I think for like everybody, for me, when it first started, I'm actually at my office is in the same building where the first attorney who got it in New York worked.
Really?
Yeah, so they shut my office down. They didn't shut it down, but they announced COVID was in the building in mid-March.
Mm,
So right now I'm back in the office, but I'm
right.
just back in the office like the last couple of weeks because I was out. Thank God everybody in my family so far is happy, healthy, and safe. But
Right.
I've lost clients. I've lost people that I know. So it's been serious.
Yeah, it's a tough time right now. It's good to see you in the office though, man. It's like you definitely good to see people going back to work. People are actually
Yeah,
getting back at it, right?
yeah, it's
How
hard.
yeah, how have you had to pivot since COVID hit? What changes have you had to make?
Well, I had to ramp up my home office was probably like the first thing that I did, right?
Yeah,
Because initially there was no work. I think that, the courts closed, criminal court closed, civil court closed, administrative court closed, where I do a lot of cases.
right.
Um, no one was doing anything, no one was really doing any work. And then once the courts opened back up, everything was taking place over Zoom, over Skype, over WebEx. And, really was trying to get my technology together
Right.
and integrate my system. One of the things I had to do was like go virtual because at the initial part of the outbreak, when I knew it was in my building, I didn't want to come here to get files for cases that were coming up.
Right.
So, it kind of really has put me in a position where you have to understand the power of technology and how relevant technology is to every practice. Um, and really just figuring out how to operate Zoom, how to have a meeting on Zoom, how to do a hearing on Zoom. And that's been like a steep learning curve, I think, for me and for, most attorneys that are involved in this right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everybody's been having to adjust. Um, Zoom has like increased a lot of, business for a lot of people, especially where you are in the city. I guess a lot of people don't necessarily have to travel into the office right now because of Zoom. But what is it
I,
that makes you want to come into the office? Are you kind of the guy that needs to be in the office to be productive, or like what makes you want to go into the office every morning?
I'll be honest with you. I think I don't need to be in the office to be productive. Actually, I got to the point where I would come to the office and I was so used to working at home
Hmm.
that I couldn't be productive in the office. I'd been
Right.
working from home for so long, but what I realized was starting to happen was I didn't have any kind of, I was always at work. It's funny, you work at home, you're never at work, but you're always at work.
Yeah, it's a fact.
And it got to the point where I like to be able to kind of set some parameters
Yeah.
for my personal life and my business life.
Right.
And that's easier to do when you come into the office. So when I leave, I can say I gave 110% while I was here.
Right.
And, if I don't take a call once I leave here, I don't have to feel bad about it.
Right.
You never know when to stop when you're working at home. People are calling, people are setting up meetings, and, it just kind of, you don't have any division.
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah. So it's like work-life balance. You need that. And the office helps with that.
You
Right.
do. You do.
Yeah.
And then my wife, right? So my
Yeah.
wife's working from home as well.
Ah.
So we're both doing Zoom meetings throughout the house. I have two kids, you
Right.
know, my son's waking up, you know, so it's one of those things where you also kind of monopolize the house
Right.
when you're doing that, especially if you have your family there, and it kind of ceases to be fair at some point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I have the ability to come in, and I'm fortunate enough to still have the space and still be here, I might as well take advantage of it, I figured.
Yeah, it's a pivotal time for a lot of people, man, and it's hard to not only work-life balance, but then that cutoff period that you're talking about, knowing that you don't have to answer the calls because you know you left the office, then you can spend time like just some you time, maybe time for the family, right? And just
Exactly.
have that separation between the two. It's hard for a lot of people to do that too, especially with the e-learning and kids doing virtual learning and so much. There's a lot going on, right? So
Right.
I'm wondering how much of our house we can write off as a tax break.
I think at this point
You know
more
what I
than we
mean?
think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, if it's one of those situations where if one person in the house is on a Zoom meeting in the living room, you might be taking the call in the bedroom,
Right.
or you might be in the basement typing while someone else is
Right.
in the bedroom taking a meeting. So
Right.
I think the house is kind of one of those things where we're utilizing all areas that we possibly can.
Yeah. Like a COVID tax break or something. Right.
Exact. That would be nice. That would be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, definitely. Richard, so you have a few different layers to your business, right? It's not just criminal defense, right? It's
Right.
also labor and employment. So
Correct.
with everything going on with COVID, a lot of people were out of work. A lot of people were, let go.
Yep.
PPP came out, right? So to try to help people stay on board. Have you seen an increase in business because of COVID in the
I
labor
have.
side, the labor and employment side? What did that look like for you? Or what has it been
Um,
like for you?
so yeah, I'm actually in an interesting position because a lot of attorneys will represent only management side
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing labor and employment, and a lot of attorneys will represent only union side.
Mm-hmm.
But I do work with labor unions throughout the city, as well as a few charter schools in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing from the management side is, trying to get people to feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
coming back to work. And when you're dealing with unions, that requires a substantial amount of negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's created a lot of work for me. And then from the employment side, like you just said, I think a lot of companies are trying to scale back. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
companies are getting rid of people. A lot of companies, to the extent they're giving out severance packages, or just trying to terminate people. We're at a time where we haven't seen anything like this in the law,
Right.
from the perspective of COVID. Right? We don't know, is it something that's going to be a condition that like pregnancy, where you could be discriminated against because you have it. What are the privacy concerns of making people reveal tests, and what are the safety considerations versus the privacy concerns?
Wow.
And those are questions that I think are going to get answered probably over the next few years. I think the litigation that comes out of COVID is probably going to outlive COVID.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, it sounds like it, because a lot of things that we're not thinking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of things that we haven't seen. The last time I think we were in a situation like this was probably the 1918 pandemic, the
Spanish
the
flu.
big flu that came around. Yeah.
Yeah, the Spanish flu. They call it the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, people never really think about that. So then you also have the criminal defense side of your business also, right?
Correct.
How's that been going?
I tell you, I think actually that's probably been one of the slower parts of my practice. I think,
Really?
yeah, the increase in labor or employment law situations, that's probably been the most active part of my practice right now.
Uh-huh.
I think with everything that's been happening around the country, especially here in New York, like, for a long time, the police were just trying to maintain order.
Right.
So a lot of the cases that I traditionally deal with, I wasn't seeing those because I think the police had to divert their attention elsewhere, right? And I haven't received. I've maybe got 2 or 3 criminal cases in the last 4 months, which is light.
Right. Okay. So more labor and employment stuff. That's really where you're busiest, right?
That's where I'm busiest right now.
Okay. How have you been affected with all this social, the social trauma? Like I'm calling it trauma, not drama, but trauma, right? Because
Right.
Black BLM and all of that. Like how has your business been affected with the rioting and looting? You're right in the middle of it all. You're in the city, right? So
Right.
yeah, how has that been affecting you?
I was home. I don't even think I came into the office. I was literally coming into the office to grab mail once a week and heading out. And I came down across the Brooklyn Bridge around Center Street, City Hall, 1PP, and I saw it looked like a third world country war zone down there. All of the buildings had been spray painted, and that was the first time I realized kind of how serious it was. I'd seen it on the news, but I'd seen, I used to work for DOE. So I worked right there on Chambers. I know that building. I spend a lot of time at 1PP because I defend some of non-uniformed police employees.
Right.
And so it was just crazy to see what had happened there.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to business, I think it's a new adaptation. I think what's happening now with clients is we don't really have that thing where people are coming in for consultations, asking how you feel about their case, kind of interviewing you before they hire you as their attorney.
Right.
I think it's a phone call and either we go or we don't. You hire me or you hire another lawyer. Yeah. And, setting up different avenues to receive revenue has also been a big part of COVID, finding various applications to accept payment, to render payment. That's kind of been one of the things I've also been adjusting to.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And it's like, what I'm surprised to hear is that your criminal defense side is not as busy considering everything going on in the streets. But people are looking for employment. So I can understand why that's busiest. How did you even get into law? Like when I first met you, I think we were looking for a house for you. You and your wife, you guys were looking for a house. And you just, people have this stereotype about what a lawyer is. I'll be honest with you. When I first started out in rentals with in real estate, you're talking back in 2010, 2011, a lot of management companies were like, if she's a lawyer, we don't want him.
Wow.
They would discriminate
really?
against lawyers, real talk. And the other thing was, I used to date a girl back in, I'm talking, college, right? And we studied paralegal, and and a lot of the guys would be like, don't date the lawyers.
Really?
Yeah, because they like to argue. They're so argumentative, you know what I mean? And so law has always been something that if you have that passion to defend people, or if you are argumentative, or if you have some kind of a real solid opinion that you could defend, maybe you should get into law, right? So when I met you, you were just very agreeable. You were a nice guy. You were looking for a house for your family. You didn't seem too disagreeable. You didn't seem too oppositional. You were just a nice guy. And then when you told me you were a lawyer, I was like, oh, what? I couldn't see it. You know what I mean? Because you were just complete from everything that I've been told a lawyer should act and be like, right? So what got you into law? What attracted you to get into law?
So I got to go back because the thing, I'll say this about lawyers, right?
Yeah.
Lawyers make people play by the rules, or they do their best to do it, right? And there's a tendency among everybody in every field to kind of, subvert the rules a little bit, right? So I think that's the one reason why people don't like lawyers. And then, I think, honestly, Shakespeare said in one of his plays, we're going to do like the lawyers. We strive mightily as adversaries, but we eat and drink as friends, right? So you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And the reason I got into the law initially was I knew my mother was big on education, right? And she was legitimately serious about that. And I thought maybe I wanted to do something that was a legitimate profession. I wanted to do something like that required me to actually utilize my intellect.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, initially, after I got out of school, I thought I was just going to work. And, I was just going to get a job. I was going to go to work. and I was a criminal justice major. And for me, coming from, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri originally. Okay. So coming from there, I didn't have anyone in my family who was a lawyer. I didn't know a lot of lawyers. And I ended up getting a job at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office.
Okay.
And at that point in time, the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office was extremely diverse. And I met a lot of Black lawyers, and they made the profession seem more accessible.
All right.
I was under the impression that you had to be, the smartest person in the world. You think of lawyers as being extremely smart and, as you said, very aggressive. But I met a lot of lawyers there that they were extremely intelligent, but at the same time, they were more than willing to kind of mentor me, knowing that I had an interest in the law. And then I was like, you know what, it is doable. It's something that can be done. And I think, for someone who doesn't have anyone in their family that's kind of pushing them in that direction, to meet other people that are like you, that have walked that path, that can give you advice, made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like what you said there. You didn't have anybody in your family. One thing in the Haitian culture is huge. They push you to be doctors. They push you to be lawyers. They push you from a very young age, right? They want you to be a professional. And it's like, as you're growing up, like for me, my parents were pushing me. My father did immigration law, right? For Haitians coming out of Haiti and naturalizing them in the 80s you're talking about, right? So late 80s, early 90s, that's when there was like the Haitian boat people crisis. They were, migrating from Haiti illegally into the States, and they were coming in and they were getting natural. My father was naturalizing them, right? And so the idea was for us, my sister was older. She was going to be a lawyer. And then I was next in line. I was supposed to be a lawyer, right? Or a doctor. And the idea it didn't stick. Like, I just didn't want to do it. You know what I mean? So the fact that nobody was pushing you in that direction, it just kind of like you gravitated towards it on your own. That speaks volumes to like your ability to just think independently. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what also happened was, I was getting ready to have my daughter.
Oh, okay.
And I realized it was a huge motivation.
Yeah.
A huge motivation to be able to put myself in a better position to provide for the family. Was an incredible motivation, because I went to law school at night. So I was working full time during the day. I initially was working 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. Or 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Really?
I would go home and read, right? And then I would commute to St. John's in Queens and work till 10 a.m., 10 p.m. and go back and do it all over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what was college like for you? Were you the kind of kid jumping around from major to major, or you just knew you weren't going in for law? Like, how was that for you?
I was, what happened? I'm one of those people. And I think anybody who finds themselves in a position where, they're making the best possible life for themselves.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times what happens with that is you see that they've had a mentor, right? They've had a lot of mentors that kind of carried them through various stages of their lives. And I had a great professor who ended up becoming my frat brother when I was in college that kind of just completely guided me through college. I went to an HBCU.
Yeah. Okay.
So every professor was a mentor to me.
Got it.
And at the time I was talking about law school, but then I was also doing what you do when you're in college and having a good time and hanging out.
Having the experience.
Yeah, I was having the college experience. So it got to a point eventually where by the time I was ready to graduate, law school was kind of like the furthest thing from my mind.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't even think about the LSAT until I got out in the workforce and realized that, in order to be competitive, you need something else. I'm a criminal justice major. I didn't want to be a police officer. I didn't really want to be a probation officer or deal with any kind of administration within the system.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of take it forward. And back to my lack of knowledge at the time, I thought the only way you become a lawyer is major in criminal justice, and then you become a lawyer. I didn't understand how multifaceted the law is.
Right. Right. So you had to narrow down the ridiculous and really find out where you were going to get in, right? So that you could actually do something with it. You mentioned that you really took it seriously around when your daughter was about to be born. how old were you then? And like, what made you say, because look, it's very competitive. And, you know, I was telling you the other day, I was like, you know, Reginald F. Lewis is one of the guys that influences me, right? And a lot of people don't know that name, black man, who was the Black Wolf of Wall Street, right? And this is like the most unassuming individual, because at the time, those opportunities were not available for black men, right? But this is a man that, you know, he went into Harvard for a summer when everybody was taking the summer off. And it was during that time that he went into Harvard for a summer that he studied law, and he decided to go out and pursue that. So what I'm wondering with you is, and you remind me a lot of him, actually, right? That's why I bring that up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
I appreciate that.
No, you really do, because a lot of black lawyers, a lot of young black lawyers, a lot of young men would rather go into something that they could just jump right into quick, instead of having to commit to that length of education. Me, myself, I love psychology, right? And I was going to go for the doctorate, but then when I heard it was 8 years, I was like, oh, forget that. I'm not going to go for 8 years. So what is it that made you decide, you know what, the education aspect is so important that you're going to stick to it. You're going to ride it out until you can get your own you get your foot in the door your own way. Like, what was it about it that made you really stick to it?
Well, you know, it was kind of one of those things where, you know, I went to St. John's, and, you know, you get the classic thing they tell you in law school on the first day is look to the left, look to the right. One of the people you just looked at won't be here next year. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So I knew that wasn't, I made a decision within my own mind that wouldn't be me.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
And at that point, once you make that I think once you get in, you've done all the hard work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to stop.
Yeah.
Right. If you're there, you have the intellectual capacity to be there.
Yeah.
Then it just boils down to work ethic.
Yeah.
You know, and perseverance.
Right.
You know, and I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to persevere, because it's going to be difficult. It's going to be humbling. Yeah. You're going to meet people that, even if you thought you were smart coming in and you thought you were smarter than everybody coming in,
right,
there's people that are smarter than you.
That want it more.
That want it more. Yeah. That have more time. You know, you know, you may be working full time. You may have other life obligations.
Right.
Right. And people may not have those same obligations.
Right.
So you're going to have to figure out, like you just said, how to adjust.
Yeah.
But the thing about it was, I was really focused on just creating a better situation for myself and my family.
Yeah.
That was the biggest motivation. And I think once a man is motivated and he kind of can envision something in his mind, he's going to be a hard man to stop.
Yeah. I like that. That's a fact too. I believe that. I truly believe that. You know what else I'm wondering too, when it comes to you and law? All right. So it's not only competitive, and it's not even somebody wants it more, and it's not even memorization and, you know, getting out there and hustling and grinding. You have two things, I think, when it comes to law. You can work for a law firm that has a reputation that precedes them, right? And you can work towards becoming partner, right? Which is a lot of people who are committed and they go all the way. That's what they do. And then you can also go out there and do what you did and start your own law office. Now, what made you decide to go start your own law office? Like, that's, you know, that's kind of crazy, because of the overhead, the risk, that you got no clients, you got nothing, right? And you're in the biggest city, you're like in the busiest city in the world, where it's extremely cutthroat, right? You've got all kinds of attorneys out there. You're not in like a small borough or a small suburb. You're in the city. You're in the heart of all of it. So what made you want to open up your own office?
Well, it took a while. I'll be honest with you. And I did it against better judgment of, like, you know, speaking to people that I respect.
Right.
But what happened was, I mean, I think I got to the point where, I'll be honest with you, I was in public service for the first, I want to say 10 years of my legal career. Okay. Maybe 8 years of my legal career.
Okay.
At the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I was then at DOE. I was then at the Health and Hospitals Corporation. And at some point, the funny thing about going to a firm is, at least I've never worked at one, but my understanding of it is, you know, you may not get the most trial experience, but you're going to be very handsomely compensated.
Okay.
Right?
So it's about the money.
Yeah, you're going to be very handsomely compensated at a big firm, and they're gonna work you.
Right.
You know, I know a friend of mine got married, and his wife worked at a firm, and they were going to go, I think, to the Philippines, and the firm reimbursed them for their tickets and told her, "You need to stay because we need
That's
to finish this project."
crazy. Yeah, that's
Right?
insane. Yeah.
And I think in the public sector, the funny thing is you sacrifice that big paycheck in the beginning
Yeah.
for experience,
Yeah.
right? So you say, I'm not going to take, the salary in exchange for the experience. But I think what happens over time is it turns itself upside down. So
Hmm.
you go from taking advantage of the fact that you're getting this experience to being taken advantage of because you have this experience, And I
Okay.
think once I had that realization, and then as I said, by that time, I've been working, even though I hadn't been an attorney, I'd worked so much within the community, the legal community, that I was comfortable making that step out. I made connection with people, and I started off just doing contract work for other lawyers. And then I kind of was able to expand and able to acquire clients, and here we are,
Yeah. Yeah. So like bootstrapped it. You bootstrapped it all the way, right?
I
How did you
did.
yeah, how did you feel about that? Because it's risky, man. It's not, and it's like it's not risk that's like a one-time deal. It's risk on top of risk, right?
Oh, of course.
So how did you like, okay, some people are, risk averse. They don't want to go, they want somebody to do the hard part for them. And then like you said, maybe they go to the bigger firms and work towards becoming partner. But then they lose a sense of maybe their family life or their independence or something, the golden handcuffs, right?
Right.
So then when you look at what you're doing, and it's risk on top of risk,
Right.
depending on the clients. So you have three parts to your business, right? Especially today, what's going on, it's like, why not? But how did you deal with the potential risk and the challenges, maybe obstacles, people
Right.
telling you that you're not going to make it? Did you ever experience any of that?
Oh, no one told me I wasn't going to make it, but I did hit a crossroads right before I came out on my own. I had an opportunity to take another position
Okay.
or to go out on my own.
Yeah.
And I kind of been freelancing at the time.
Right.
And, you know, I, I think I took the most calculated risk I could
I like you
for
said
someone who's
calculated.
entering into that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then I stepped out on faith,
All
you
right.
know, um, and like I said before, I think one of the biggest things was I knew that, for the specific areas of law that I was going to enter into, I knew that I had sufficient experience to be able to render a service to the people who came to see me. And I think one of the things I've said, and one of the things I tell people when they come into my office, if I can't leave you better than you are right now, I would rather not work with you.
I like that. Yeah, I
You
like
know,
that. Yeah,
you know,
I
that's
like
been a
that a lot.
big thing. A friend of mine always says that as an attorney, you're either a social engineer or you're a parasite.
Wow, that's powerful.
Right.
If you want to be
Right.
compared to a parasite, then yeah, you better be a social engineer.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
My goodness. Yeah, you guys are tough. That's intense. So let me ask you a question. With everything going on right now, and I want to kind of like take it to, a little bit of what's going on in the streets as far as like the BLM movement and systemic racism and opportunities that are supposedly not available. I'm a big believer in, it's the decisions that people make at the end of the day that's going to get them to where they ideally want to be in their lives. It's really about the decisions they make. And in each decision, there's going to be a consequence. And you have the opportunity to learn from making a bad decision and making a mistake because nobody's perfect. So you sound to me like you are tried and true when it comes to your decision-making ability. And, you're in an area where a lot of people are struggling to get into that area, to get into law, to be a professional, to stick to education, to not go for a quick fix, right? What do you say to this generation of the youth, right, who are
Right.
in the streets, probably, BLM, they're rioting, they're looting, they're angry, right? They feel disenfranchised or whatever it is. What is your take on the whole situation?
Right. Well, I understand the frustration. Right. I understand how you could be frustrated with what we're seeing right now. And I understand that, you know, they say oppression sires rebellion, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. I think one of the unfortunate parts about it is that we haven't figured out a way to more constructively channel our frustration. I don't think, you know, I'm not sure that all of the negativity that we're seeing that surrounds, let me back that up. I don't want to say that Black Lives Matter is responsible for all the rioting and the looting, because I remember specifically, I think it was in Minnesota, that, you know, there were people that had infiltrated these protests
Yeah.
and were involved in like a lot of the destruction that was taking place in order to tarnish the Black Lives Matter movement. I think to the extent we are involved in that, I just think that that's counterproductive. But I also think that we need to figure out a way or a system in which we have an agenda that addresses our concerns, that we, you know, I look at, you know, we're in a situation right now with the president, you know, nobody wants to vote for Trump. Everybody hates Trump, and I get it. Not that I get you hate Trump, but you understand, I get it. You know what I'm saying? I get it. He's not very, very, he's a mess. But the reality of it is that because of that, our vote is disregarded, right? Everybody knows most Black people are not voting for Trump, right? So we're not in play. You know, there's no incentive to put forward an agenda that addresses the issues that Black America is concerned about right now, because the Republicans write off the Black vote and the Democrats take it for granted. You know, and I would like to see a movement that puts our political issues in the forefront, puts our vote in a big block, and we go with whoever's willing to advance that agenda.
Here's a question for you. Are you looking at it as a lawyer, or are you looking at it as a citizen, or both?
I don't think I can divorce one from the other, right? It's hard because, you know, you do this every day, and you have to try to consider both sides of the equation. So it's hard to look at it just as a citizen or just as a lawyer, because you're always going to be thinking of it with that lawyer's mind. You know, it's like you're a doctor, you see somebody hobbling down the street, you might feel bad for him, but you're probably going to, in their mind, they're probably going to be like, I wonder if he's got this ailment or that ailment.
I hate that you say that. I hate that you say that about the doctor part, because I always wonder, why do doctors smoke cigarettes even though they know what it's going to do to them? Like, you're a doctor, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, hello, you're supposed to know better than that. You know?
Right, but lawyers break the law all the time.
That's where I'm going. That's exactly where I'm going. So here's the deal. And a lot of people, you know, get upset with me when I say this, but I kind of like Trump. And I like Trump because he's a businessman.
Right.
I look at him solely as a businessman. I'm a big proponent, and I like to believe that we are an extension. What we do is an extension of who we are. Right? Okay. It's not making a mistake does not define who we are. Right.
Correct.
We can detach from our mistakes as long as we can learn from them. Right.
Okay.
So I'm a big believer in the fact that, you know, there's a right time for everybody. So far, there's going to be a right time for everybody to make a move. So for me, I think Trump is an ideal candidate right now because of his business acumen. He knows how to broker deals. That's all I'm looking at. As far as his narcissism, as far as his, you know, whatever it may be, sometimes he has to take his foot out of his mouth because he says something he doesn't know anything about. But then he also has, like, you know, people around him to ask questions to. That's something else. That's a whole different, you know, conversation. But as far as his business acumen before he became president, I mean, this is a guy that's literally traveled around the world, dealt with people around the world, done business with people around the world, has golf courses around the world, right? So he understands how business works. Now, for me, if I'm looking, and that's why I asked you if you're looking at it as a lawyer or a citizen, because if I look at it as a business guy, I love business, I love sales, right?
Right.
I'm into the sales. I love sales. I love the hustle. I love the grind, right?
Right.
In the middle of the forest, I'm going to figure it out, right? That's the kind of person I am. So I say, if this kind of guy has that level of experience throughout the world and he can broker deals, then
Right.
if this country is a business, then,
Right.
this guy might be the right guy for the job, right? Now, when it comes to looking at the Black Lives Matter movement, I think that what it did was it opened up and it created opportunities for us to have conversations, and it created opportunities for us to raise awareness around things that are not working out, right, throughout the country as a whole, right?
Right.
Now, I think when you start playing identity politics, then we can start pointing fingers and looking for flaws, right? And we can start saying, this person's not doing well with this person's not doing well with that, and there's very little accountability and
Right.
very little room for us to unite. That's really how I feel about it. So
Right.
if you put Trump in the room with Biden and you let them go at it, I feel safer with Trump than I do with Biden. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because Biden
Okay.
he's been in the arena for 47 years.
Right.
He's done nothing, right? That's just from everything I've been researching, right?
Right.
Now, when I look at what Trump has done within his 47 years, not as a politician, mind you,
Okay.
as a businessman,
Right.
right? And that's where I'm weighing his potential to do business for this country, right?
Right.
And I say,
Right.
okay, I feel better because that's what it is at the end of the day. When you look at it from China's perspective, or you look at it from Russia, or maybe Iran, right? Or you look at it from,
Right.
countries that pretty much are older than the United States, I think they respect the acumen of the mind frame of a businessman. Now, how does that tie in with BLM? If we don't have a clear-cut direction for us to go in, right? We run into trouble. We run into conflict, right? Somebody like you, who you went to school, you pursued your dream, right? And you saw
Right.
how you can benefit your community, how you can benefit your clients, how you can help people, right? I think that
Right.
a lot of people in the Black community have the ability to do that. And I'm not
Correct.
talking about Black community like, African Americans. I mean, every ethnic background that feels disenfranchised or feels left behind or feel like there is a systemic problem and they're not being looked on, they're not being serviced, they're not being helped. We all have the ability to contribute on some level. Question is, what level do we want to contribute on? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm
Definitely.
at. So I'm wondering too, like for you, when you see it as a lawyer and as a citizen, what is
Right.
something that you would advise some of the youth that are out there right now that are protesting, or they're just feeling left out? They're feeling like they're not being heard, right?
Right.
They don't know which course to take, and to them, BLM seems like the right course, right?
Right. Right.
What do you think is some words, maybe some steps people can take so that they can be heard, or so that they can, make a difference?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things they could do is vote. Right. I mean, I think you made an interesting point about Trump from the business perspective. Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, can I just speak to that?
Yeah, please. Tell me
So,
whatever you got going on in
all
there.
right.
I
Yeah.
want to hear it.
I kind of want to say this because I'll even concede
Yeah.
that, just for the sake of this point, that the country is a business. Right. But I'll even concede, even though, we could say whether or not Trump's a great businessman or whether or not he's great at licensing. One thing he's really a genius at is marketing, for sure, because he sold himself to the United States.
Right.
But if in this business that we're calling the United States, my concern is the culture of the company.
Talk to
right?
me. Yep.
Okay.
Talk to me.
And Trump is bad culture.
Okay.
You understand?
Tell me why.
Well, because, we're the shareholders of this company. This company that is America, we are the shareholders. And we just heard a couple of days ago that he lied to the shareholders about business. He lied to us about, how this disease spreads. He lied to us about, how infectious it is initially. And he knew that. He didn't set that example. I think one of the things is I look at it like, and I understand where you're coming from, from the economic perspective, because there are various policies that probably economically would benefit someone like me coming from Trump, right? But I equate that to, I don't want to work a job that I hate, even though it pays me more than a job that I would love. And my concern is the example that he sets One of the reasons, I think one of the big reasons we have this is because I think there's a way that he could be more diplomatic with the Black community to address their concerns, but there's politics involved, right? So it's the concern is, I'm not going to tell Black people that it's wrong for a policeman to kneel on a Black man's neck for 9 minutes or 8 minutes and 46 seconds on television, because my base is going to disagree with that. And my base is not going to like me saying that you shouldn't shoot a man in the back as he's walking to a car. My base is not going to allow me to recognize that there's a discrepancy between a 17-year-old kid walking to the cops with an AR-15 after he shot 3 people and a 12-year-old boy who had a toy gun getting killed. Like, those are the things. There's a difference. It's not just business when you're the president, because you set the mood, you set the tone. And I don't think he sets a good tone for this country right now.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
Yeah. On some levels, I definitely agree with you, but then on some levels, I don't agree with you, because I'm just going to play a little devil's advocate here, right? I think what most people expect from this guy is an actual politician. And what you get is, every time you have an expectation for him to react or respond as a politician would, you get a businessman. And
right.
You get somebody who's just bottom line, right? And a lot of times it's like, you got two kinds of people in the world, and I deal with this a lot with the coaching business. You got people who talk to think, and then you got people who think before they talk. Trump is the kind of guy who talks before he thinks. He just talks to think. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this is like a business habit, right? Because you're in a room and you're trying to negotiate a deal, or you're trying to, figure out what the inner dynamics are of the deal. You talk to think. So a lot of times, after he reviews the information, or after he gets Henry Ford had this problem also. Henry Ford was like one of those guys, if he didn't know something, he would hire people on. And you get this in the entrepreneurial space. You get people who are not the experts in one particular area, but they go ahead and they hire the experts, right? So you have that happening a lot. And I think that's what happens with him. So I think what happens also is, when you expect a businessman to react like a politician and you realize, oh, he's not a politician, you get disappointed.
But he is a politician.
This is the game.
He's the head politician.
I love that you just said that, because he's literally doing on-the-job training. It's OJT. He's never held political office before.
Right.
When you talk about culture, I think he's still learning about that culture. But let me say this, right? So it doesn't sound like I'm making an excuse. I think that where it becomes important is because you as a citizen, me as a citizen, we can see his where he makes mistakes, and you have to allow room for error. I don't care what arena you're in, but I think that what it falls on is to have people like Mike Pence, people like Chuck Schumer, people like on both sides, to educate him and to not be so oppositional, and to bring more of their experience to him and say, hey, listen, we understand somehow, some way, you got it. I don't know how you did it, man, but you got it. Somehow you became the leader of this free world.
Right.
All right. But because we're all in this together, not only are we praying for you, but we're going to show you how to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we have X amount of years of experience of being politicians.
Right.
But this is not what's happening. And so it creates, now when you talk about the culture, what's happening is there's a trickle down of the divide. It's divided. The House is divided. Senate is divided. So what's going to happen? The country is ultimately going to be divided. If mom is constantly undermining dad, or if dad is constantly undermining mom, the kid knows who to split.
Right.
And he knows how to split the parents. Why? Because he already sees that there's division. Right. So I think, when we look at what's going on with BLM right now, whether it's something that, was a narrative that was preset to get more votes, or what's going on with the virus right now, whether it was released from Wuhan or whatever the story is, right? There's so much uncertainty and so much chaos and so much confusion that you're right. We do need somebody to be diplomatic. You're 100% right about that. But I think what he needs support, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to the BLM movement. It's the same thing when it comes to this coronavirus. We need more support. We should be hearing more about how to build our immune health, how to build our immunity. We should be hearing more about, okay, in the streets, if you're underserviced, if you're living in a low-income neighborhood, what is it that's going from the people that are the constituents that are living in the neighborhood? We should be able to listen to them. Hey, come to these congressional meetings, sit down with us, tell us what's going on in your community, tell us what needs to change, tell us how we can, defund the police, but we want to hear you. We need more involved.
Tell us why there's no fresh vegetables in Brownsville.
Yeah, right. Tell us about that. We need that open floor. You know what I mean? And I don't know. Does that sound like too utopian or something? Am I high?
No. I mean, maybe, but I think I don't know. But I think about it more like, see, that's the thing is like, see, of all the jobs in the world that you shouldn't be learning on the job. I mean, every president learns on the job, right? But at least they have political experience. And my concern is like, you take this kid who just got his license and you put him behind the wheel of a Ferrari and throw the entire country in the back. Right. And you wonder why we're sitting, why I'm in the office and I have a mask and I can't go outside because, we're more concerned about what the truth is going to do to the economy than we are about saving people's lives. That's my concern because you have people that have told him what he needs to hear. Right. But he doesn't, you said it, he's a businessman. So listen, this doesn't work for me. I'm not a businessman per se, but I know that one thing about business is speed is power, right? So I want this done right now. This is how we're going to do it. I don't really want to hear the alternative option if it doesn't get it done right now. Right. And I don't think that's the way we can run the country. And I think when you take Charlottesville, for example, when you say that there are bad people on both sides, you put people in a position where you're like, they're not gonna feel like they're being heard, and you're gonna stoke that. You got to give people. One thing about people, I guess, if you like Trump, you probably were on the fence about Obama, right?
No, I voted for Obama the first time around. Not the second time around, though. I didn't like how he used the LGBT movement to get votes the second time around. I don't know why he did that. The first time around, I loved the guy. I was still like a college kid. I had just, I was on my way out of college, and I could, what it was? It wasn't the fact that he was black, even though that made a lot of my decision. The fact that he was black, right? I would never have voted for Jesse Jackson. Right. If I was alive during that time, I would have never voted for Jesse Jackson. Okay. I voted for Obama because I understood Obama. He spoke English. Like, he wasn't hiding behind political terms or rhetoric or nothing. He spoke basic English. I understood what he was saying. I understood where he came from. I understood his politics. I understood how he grew up without his dad. I understood so much of him. I even went out and bought his book. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I loved Obama first term. Second term, I was confused. I was like, well, what does LGBTQ have to do with anything? Right. It doesn't really, like, if you're trying to get the votes, I see why you're going that route, but you weren't doing that in 2008 when you were campaigning. Prop 8 got passed. At the time, Proposition 8 got passed, and then it got reversed in California. And people were in the streets protesting, and Obama had nothing to do with it. Like, he was like, keep away from that. Right. So for me, what I'm saying is, look, and I'm not big on politics. I do believe that politics impacts business, though. And that's where my whole my perspective comes from, because I'm trying to figure out a way for us. And I think what it is, it's a cry for help from, from minorities, quote unquote minorities, because they want to bridge that wealth gap. They want more. You know what I mean? They don't want working all their lives. So I think politics does impact business. So how can we help, right? How can we do something so that we can get a piece of the pie too, right? Right. The blue collar workers, the working class, the middle class. Right. They want to evolve. We want to come up. We want to scale our businesses, right? We want to create, generational wealth. Right. We can't do this with all this division.
Well, right. I mean, that's true, right? But I mean, it's funny that you just said a moment ago that, on the second time that Obama ran, he kind of like, I'm not misquoting you, but pandered to the LGBTQ movement, right? Right. But is Trump not pandering to the white supremacist movement right now?
How do you define white supremacy? Pandering? How do you define white supremacy? That's the question.
I define white supremacy as a power structure that exists on the subjugation of the Black race. Or a subscription to the idea that this is the white man's country.
So how do we explain? I mean, how do you explain Ben Carson sitting on his cabinet? How do you explain that?
Ben Carson sitting on his, I don't understand Ben Carson. I explain Ben Carson, to be honest, as a little bit of tokenism, sitting on his cabinet. He's a doctor, representing HUD. Isn't he the secretary of HUD, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What experience does he have with HUD? Why is he running HUD? And particularly when HUD has traditionally been the position in the cabinet where you have the African American Ron Brown, who went to St. John's, served as a commissioner of HUD,
Right.
and to that point, I don't see Ben Carson as a representation of diversity.
Yeah. You know,
You know,
I think what it is um we're being influenced to believe that race is playing a matter. It doesn't really. I don't think race really matters here. I'm being honest. This is just my
really,
take on it. Nope. I think it's income inequality. That's what I think it is. I think it's income inequality. And so when you start looking at it, you know, from a more macro point of view, what you realize is that people who are making, you know, it's under 99,000. If you're making under 99,000, the moratorium is for you. There's like a rent eviction, whatever it is, moratorium if you're making under 99,000. And then we look at the stimulus
right,
package. If you're making a certain amount of money under the stimulus package, you don't qualify for a stimulus check.
right,
You know what I mean? Why?
right,
I think really what it is at the end of the day, we look at it and we want to say that it's a race problem, and that's easiest for us to see. But if we look deeper into it, we've got multiple people from multiple cultural backgrounds that are also suffering, you know what I mean, financially. So really what we're dealing with here, it's if every 10 to 12 years, there's a downturn in the markets, right? And
hmm,
the people who are evaluating the markets, the economists, and they're seeing that there's that downturn, right? And they wait for that 12 years to go in and swoop in and buy properties and make investments because they understand how the markets work. They're able to go ahead and create that, you know, generational poverty, of generational wealth rather, right?
right.
And they're able to establish themselves. So you look at a guy like Ben Carson. I mean, he was what is he like? He's a neuroscientist, right?
Neurosurgeon. He was brain surgeon. Used to separate conjoined twins.
Yeah, you ain't gonna be broke living in the hood, going to some cute community college doing that. Like that's not
Right,
gonna happen. You see what I'm saying? So it's a
right,
matter of we're looking at a generation where uh, this is snowflake culture right now. You know what I mean? So there's really nothing for these kids to go through for them to actually make their mark. But you go back a generation, you had the civil rights movement.
right,
You had so many, you had so many segregation laws that were changed. You know what I mean?
right, right.
So
But don't you think? I mean, well, let me just say this really quickly. I think, I mean, socioeconomics is not a racial issue until you look at the fact that the majority of people in poverty, from a percentage perspective,
yeah.
are people of color.
Well, okay.
Right? One, and I would like to see, and I mean, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I would like to see, I think part of this agenda with Breonna Taylor or if it was George Floyd is for there to be some criminal liability for these police officers who are killing people.
Yeah.
If we have a black man in one position and he ends up one way, and we have a white man in another position and he ends up a different way, I don't think we can say that race doesn't play into this. And
Yeah.
I think we do ourselves a disservice to not acknowledge that race is an issue, because if we don't go to the doctor, we're never going to get healed. If we
Yeah.
don't say this is what's happening, we're never going to be able to fix it.
Right. I think you're right. I think you're right, but I think you're right for that demographic. I think you're right for that demographic, for that income demographic, right?
Right,
Because both Breonna Taylor, almost everybody you mentioned, and almost everybody that has been, you know, victims of police brutality,
right,
murders, all of them come from that bracket.
right.
Low income
But that
environment,
could be me. That could
neighborhoods.
be me.
But
That could be you. We got fortunate. We're the exceptions, not the norms.
no, but here's the deal. Here's what I wanted people to understand, right? You can always get out of that situation. You can always get out of that situation. If you can change your environment, you change your circumstances. You know what I mean? If you
Right.
change your environment, you'll be able to change your circumstances. And if you're not sidetracked by like this is me. The only reason I know a little bit about politics is because I follow what I choose to follow.
Right.
I'm only following it because it impacts my money.
Right.
That's
Right.
it. Bottom line. Like I can't
Right.
grow, I can't scale, I can't do the things that I want to do because the politics is impacting it. And I think
Right.
what happens is back in the day, you had three rich guys. You had Rockefeller, you had Carnegie, and you had JP Morgan. They bought their president. They didn't
Right.
go in and do the work themselves. They
Right.
bought their president.
Right.
Put the president in, and the president looked after their views, looked
Right.
after their interests. You know what I mean?
Right. They were
Now,
like the Putins of today.
that's you know what I mean. That's exactly what it was. So when that guy died, I think it was FDR that stepped up and became the actual president, right? And I think he was vice president. But now Trump jumps in because who's he going to buy? He's not going to buy a president. You know what I mean? He's
He
not.
got bought.
You think about the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, they and the super PACs out there. They're pushing these guys. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
how it is. That's American politics. But for us on the bottom of the echelon, trying to build small businesses, trying to, pay these taxes, whatever
Right.
we're not educated about, we're not financially literate. We don't know anything about tax shelters until, what are we learning? We're learning how to go to work, get a job, work for somebody, work for some corporation. And then
Right.
if they don't need you, they let you go.
Right.
And then what happens? You give your kids inherit the debt. You know what I mean? And what are you passing down to your kids? So for me, at the end of the day, my whole thing is, look, if we can come together as a people, black, white, purple, green, yellow, I don't care where you're from, right? And if
Right.
you're hungry and you want it, you want to go after it, you want to go get it, you can go ahead and get it, but then also change your circumstances by doing that.
But I mean, man, I feel like that a little bit I think that kind of oversimplifies it, right? Because you can go get it, but my mother drove me 30 miles to school every day so that I could get a private education, right? So a lot of people don't have that basic foundation that you need to start to bring yourself to that place, right?
Right.
And I mean, we spoke about just recently. We were talking about food. My wife works in a neighborhood in Brooklyn where we have to drive 20 minutes outside of the neighborhood to get like a healthy lunch for her if we're going to meet up and have lunch,
Right.
because there's nothing healthy in the area.
Right.
And I feel like it's a great idea. I mean, I love the idea of that, but first let's level that playing field, right? Let's make sure that everybody has the same access to education and everybody has the same access to the same quality of education.
Sure.
Right? But we don't have that right now.
Yeah.
We don't have that right now.
Yeah.
And as I said before, I had a lot of people who stepped up in various parts of my life and served as mentors to me. Right?
That's missing. Yeah, that's missing.
A lot of people don't have that.
Right.
So I can't tell you to build a house if you don't have the tools to lay the foundation to build upon. And I think that's one of the things we need to address before we say that you could do what I did, because you may not have had the opportunities that I've had. And I acknowledge how fortunate I've been to encounter the people that I've encountered. And I understand that but for the grace of God go I.
So you're saying we need to have more mentors. That's one.
Of course.
You're saying that we need to and I get it. You don't like Trump. That's all good.
Well,
you're saying that we need to be more I'm hearing you say, because you drive 20 miles out, or your mother drove 30 miles out to get you to school, right?
She did.
Yeah. So we need to try harder, man. Right? Like,
well, but why do I have to drive 30 miles out? Because I live in the inner city. Why does my mother, why do we have to pay? Why don't we have the same type of schools in our community?
How do you feel about school choice? How do you feel about school choice?
Well, it depends, right? I mean, I think, well, that's the answer to every question, but I think that's fine. But what is I don't think it should be an issue of school choice. I think everybody should be getting the same level of education. I think we should be putting the same amount of money funding into these schools so that you're not choosing between going to a school where they don't have sufficient technology to educate the children, and going to a school where they've got smart boards, whiteboards, laptops, iPads, and then you wonder why these kids aren't succeeding in life, right?
Yeah. You know, you
level
make
the
me,
playing field.
yeah, you're right. You make me think about my father though, when he told me, and he's always trying to show us how we're punk privileged kids here in the United States, because he grew up in Haiti
Right.
on a
Right.
farm. Okay.
Okay.
And you know how those
Right.
stories go, right?
Yeah.
And he had
Uphill
to
both ways, 3 miles to school, right?
on the donkey. You know what I mean? So he had
Right.
to like leave his town to go to another town because the education was better in that town. And in Haiti, the way it was for him when he was a kid, he knows almost every denomination of being Christian. Okay. Because that's
Right.
how it works over there in Haiti when he was
Right.
a kid. So like to get the best education, the town he had to go in, he had to learn how to be a 7-day evangelist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at a young age. And that's how, you know, the crops on his mom's farm paid for him to travel over there. And then at
Wow.
17, he became the head lab technician in one of the best hospitals in Haiti at that time.
Right.
When he was ready when the Haitian government was opening up another laboratory in America, they sent him over, and that's how he got here. Right.
Wow.
And he did all of that
Yeah.
by the time he was like 21. So he's looking at me at 21, listening to rap music, smoking weed, and he's like, "You're a joke. You're a joke.
Right.
You're a disappointment
Right.
to my legacy." Without saying it, that's what he's saying. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like,
Right.
I get it. I know, I understand. But I also think there's a lot of individual accountability and responsibility that if you want it as bad as you say you do, you got to go out there and you got to just create those opportunities. And there's examples out there. There are these rappers. There's Jay-Z. There's 50 Cent. There's so many more, right?
Right.
There's, you know,
Right.
it's not going to be easy. It's a fact. But at least people are not, you know, this is America.
Right.
It's not Haiti where you got to get on a freaking donkey. We've got the internet. We've got Zoom. We've got online learning. I mean, I hear all these things like
but we got poverty. We got wealth inequality.
That's right.
If 50 Cent died when he got shot 9 times, we would never know him as the mogul that we know him as today. He almost fell victim to the streets, and he's a remarkable human being. And that just shows you the reality of how difficult it is and how easy it is to fall prey to like what's going on in the streets.
No,
and I know saying it's
easy. Nobody's saying it's easy. I've been shot, stabbed. I've been, you know, in the hood.
Exactly.
I did it all, man. Like, so at the end of the day, I get it. But what I'm saying is, I'm thinking about the next 20 years.
Okay.
Everybody's upset about Trump. He's going to get another 4 years. That's nothing compared to
maybe
20 years, right? I'm pretty confident he'll get it, right? I'm pretty confident he'll get it. But I'm thinking about, you know, let's not think about that right now. Let's plan for 20 years out. Let's plan for the next generation. Let's try to raise the next president of the United States.
Right.
Let's try to create that within our communities.
Right. Well, that's what I loved about Obama.
Yeah, because it's doable.
He made it real.
It's still very real, right?
Right.
And if you're so upset about Trump, well, I mean, and most people who are upset about Trump, it's like, okay, who are we going to prop up? Who's going to be the candidate that we create? You know what I mean? So it could be your wife. Not your wife. It could be your daughter. It could be your son. It could be your neighbor's son. It could be, if they have the interest and the inclination to make a change, and then you can identify that within them. It goes back to what you're saying about being a mentor.
Right.
Help them to get there.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that they want to be president, but it can be something that they want to do in their communities or something to help them bridge that gap, right? Because I think that's what we're missing right now. If we're going through this for the next 20 years, that's on us. If the next generation suffers, that's on us.
Right. It is. It's our fault, right?
It's not on the president. It's not on anybody. It's on us.
Well, I mean, I go back to, we already, and I'm saying this as, you know, my family's from the South. My family probably came into this country in the 1600s, right? So my family, I'm a descendant of the slaves in America from Louisiana in about 1643, to the best of my knowledge, on my grandfather's side. So there's a distinction between, you know, actually saying that it's all fair when it's not, right? We're not starting the race at the same point. Yeah, I'm not saying feel bad for me. I'm not saying feel bad for me because I'm not starting at the same point as you are, but just acknowledge the fact. Acknowledge the fact that you got a 400-yard head start in the 1600s.
Yeah, you're right.
And don't say, why are you so far behind me and I'm so much faster than you?
Yeah.
You know, the difficulty, one of the reasons I wanted to go out and start this business years before I did, I had a startup capital. right? I couldn't go to my father like Trump did and say, give me $1 million to blow, or give me $1 million to invest.
Right.
I didn't have that. That wasn't my reality, right?
Right.
I didn't reap those benefits.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's where we have to start. And I'm not saying we have to go into like a whole conversation about reparations, but acknowledge the fact that Black people were put in this position.
Yeah.
You
How
know?
do you feel about Run DMC, Rev Run, and his kids? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like they?
What do you mean?
Yo, because they're super like, what? So you got the little kid, and I like the family. I love watching them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Rev Run came from nothing, first of all. You know,
Right.
DMC, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then now you look at, I mean, his son, or even little Jaden Smith. I love the kid. I think he's like an amazing kid. But
Karate Kid.
there are examples out there where it's like Will Smith came from nothing, and look at Willow and Jaden. You know what I mean? It's like they're exemplary examples of what can be done. You know what I mean? Then you look at look at Denzel's son, and then you know he's an actor.
Love him, John David Washington, man. He's
a beast of an actor, right? And such a cool person, just hands down, right? There's so many like examples out there. I look at those examples and I say, you know what? These guys came from nothing. Literally nothing. And yes, somebody gave them the opportunity. You're right. Somebody did help them along the way. You're right. I think you're right. And I agree with you when you say we need mentors. We need to do more of that. You know what I mean? But the only thing I feel like we don't get enough examples of that in today's culture. Because you go back to culture. For you, it's about the culture, right? And I agree with that too. We don't get enough of that in today's culture. We don't have the Bill Cosby show anymore. Forget how you feel about Bill Cosby. It's crazy. I understand. But we don't have that anymore. We don't have the Family Matters TV show anymore.
Right.
We don't have those examples.
Yeah, the Real Housewives.
See what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you think, you know, we can change the culture? But not only that, it's like, how do we show people that you can do more of that? Like through you, as you being a lawyer, you being in the community, what are some small things that we can do, right? Some small things, practical action steps that we can take to empower the youth. Right? That's really what I want to get out of you.
Right. And I mean, I would like to see us focus on growing the next group of entrepreneurs, right? I think like we just talked about mentoring, but we got to mentor across the spectrum. It's funny, Chadwick Boseman just died, right?
Yeah.
And then you find out that Denzel Washington paid for Chadwick Boseman to go study abroad.
Right.
And then Chadwick Boseman becomes Chadwick Boseman because then we got to reach back. You know, and we got to figure out how we can reach back no matter what you're doing.
Right.
You know, if you got a portfolio of properties that you have on the market and you see a young guy struggling, trying to get on, you got to put him in some of those deals, right? Yeah. You see the lawyer. I remember when I first went out, another Black attorney, when I was thinking about going out, he was like, listen, man, it's too many of us out here. You're going to work, right? Because that's the community sense. You know, a friend of mine also said, if you want to go fast, you go alone, right? If you want to go far, you go with a group. Nice. We have to restore the sense of community around us as Black people and have an interest in us as Black people, because nobody's going to care about us the way that we will.
There it is.
Right?
Yep.
Right? I get that. But we also have to make sure that we assert our rights. And when it's not fair, we say it's not fair.
Right.
Right? You know, but I would like to see that, man. I would like to see something where we focus on entrepreneurship in the community, where we do some type of non-traditional education, where we're educating our kids on, you know, everybody's not a scholar. Everybody's not going to go be a lawyer, a doctor, a real estate broker.
Sure,
but you know what? Plumbers make a great living.
Yeah, forget it.
Electricians make a great living.
Yep. So I kind of like that idea, because I was telling you the other day, I want to start this initiative, and I like to do it in low-income neighborhoods specifically. And I'll have entrepreneurship training centers in those neighborhoods where the crime is the highest across the country, right?
Right.
I think that's what's missing. Vocational training is missing.
Right.
But then it's also being identified partners, people that would want to be a part of that. You mentioned, you know, you work with schools. A lot of us need to get back to, you know, putting those things like in the community instead of liquor stores, and we could have entrepreneurship training centers, you know what I mean? They come in, they can learn a trade, and, you know, but it's also got to be So that not only is it bridging the wealth gap, but then it's also bridging the gap in where we see tech. Not enough minorities in tech.
Yeah,
Right?
STEM.
STEM. That's what I'm trying to really think about. I'm still putting the game plan together, but I think something like that would be huge in communities where where there's a lot of crime.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of crime because people don't have anything to do with themselves. They're bored.
Right. And the genius mind, right? Is it a coincidence that Jay-Z was a crack dealer before he became a brilliant entrepreneur?
Right. Transferable skills, man.
Yeah, those are transferable skills, and in a lot of communities, the only commodity that you can get to sell without startup capital is drugs, right? You're a street dude, the guy fronts you this drugs, right? He fronts you the drugs, you sell the drugs, you bring them back, you keep your profit.
Well, I mean, you don't have to sell drugs. I
No,
sold
I'm not
weed.
saying that.
That was
I'm not
about
saying
it.
that. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. No.
Yeah, I sold other things too, though. I sold car tires. I sold the most random things.
Right. But that's the point I'm making.
Markets,
You have people you have people in those communities that they have the ability to sell. They have the ability to be resourceful. They have the ability to market. They're willing to do it. But what are you going to sell?
What are you going to sell?
Where are you going to get your inventory?
Sell yourself first.
Right. Well, obviously, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
that's what it
just
is.
don't sell your soul in the process.
Don't sell your soul. That's powerful, bro.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Powerful. Sell yourself, but don't sell your soul.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Yeah. What's 3 years down the line looking like for you, Rich?
Well, I mean, I hope I can grow the practice, man. I would really like to get involved. I really like to get involved in some type of, it doesn't necessarily have to be a firm, but some type of collaborative or collective of minority attorneys of color, addressing issues like discrimination, the criminal justice issues. Right now I have a select group of lawyers that I work with when I need, when we can help each other out and we have synergy there.
Yeah.
But I'd like to put that into like a more formal agreement and work something out where we have a law firm, because I think a lot of times the reason people don't see the Black perspective is because there's no Black voice there to give it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be great. It's great to advocate for someone where you don't have to explain where they're coming from because you share a similar background and already.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Kind of skip ahead.
So do you think that you would work with other communities too that are maybe underserviced, not just the Black community, like maybe Hispanics or anywhere that, that you might see that other communities are underserviced? Would you work with them also?
Of course. I mean, but I would say I would definitely, yes, would be the answer, provided their interests aren't contrary to the interests of my own community.
Yeah.
I was telling you, I like the forgotten minority.
Yo, what's crazy is like I don't think that's not it's not being highlighted enough. Like it's not being highlighted enough. It's like, okay, yeah, Blacks are a forgotten minority, but then you also have, you've got Asians that are like going through the sex trafficking thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You also have you got like what's the other ones I'm thinking about? There's a couple of other ones, like subset cultures that have other things going on, and it's like it's global and we don't even know. You know what I mean?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I would be willing to work on that.
Yeah.
But at this point, at the end of the day, you want to help people.
Yeah. That's what I get from you. Yeah. You want to help people.
Right. I mean, and if you kind of look at the way my practice is set up, I'm in a lot of different places, but for the most part, I defend people.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I do. Whether you're going to lose your job, whether you got fired from your job, whether you might go to jail, I defend people.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can put yourself in a position to not worry about what you get, but what you give.
Amen. Talk.
Right.
Preach.
You'll find you're going to live a more fulfilling life.
Yep.
I mean, at some point, the money is what it is. There's always going to be somebody that's got more. There's always going to be somebody that has less.
Yeah.
But what are you doing to leave the world better than you found it?
Amen. Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And what are we doing as a community to leave our community better than we came into it?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What is play a quick game?
Okay.
Yeah, we call it the hands down lightning round. You
All
ready?
right, I'm with it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you 3 topics. These 3 topics, you give me your bottom line, your truth about this topic, right?
Right.
If you don't like it, just say pass, and I'll move on to the next one.
Okay. All
All
right. I
right.
like it.
All right. Who do you think was a better attorney overall, Robert Shapiro or Johnny Cochran?
Johnny Cochran.
Hands down.
Hands down.
Okay.
Hands down.
All right.
Can I
Okay.
say why?
Yeah. Talk to me.
I think Johnny Cochran. Well, one, Johnny Cochran was the guy who tried the case. First of all, he, if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. Everybody
Right.
knows that, right?
Right.
And not only that, but Johnny Cochran was smart enough to get diversity in the cases that he dealt with on his juries. And I think that was a brilliant idea. I read his book. I have an autographed copy of it here.
Wow.
So I'm a huge Johnny Cochran fan.
Yeah. There it is. That's why you chose him. You're a fan. He was a beast, though. He was a beast. Right?
He was. Oh, he's an animal.
Yeah.
He was an animal. He was already, by the time he did the OJ case, he was financially, he was secure. He represented Geronimo Pratt, who was a member of the Black Panther Party.
Right.
He lost that case, and he said he was more confident that Geronimo Pratt would not go to jail than he was in the OJ case, but he ended up losing that case.
Dang.
Yeah, and even as and after he made a lot of money as a civil rights attorney, he went back and he was the number 2 prosecutor in Los Angeles County. He drove a Rolls Royce, and he was still getting pulled over and racially profiled by the police.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's deep. It's deep, man. It's deep. I mean, like, it's deep. Okay. Here, you ready for the second one? Because you went so deep.
I'm sorry.
Deep, so I gotta get you. I gotta get you now with the second one.
Right? All right.
Black Americans that are feeling disenfranchised, should they stay here and try to grow and try to change things, or should they relocate to Africa?
Well, I mean, they should stay here, right? It would be nice if it wasn't an either or proposition. It was both and. But if I'm picking one,
can you do both and. You could do both and. It doesn't have to be either or. You can have dual. You can have dual citizenship.
Oh well, I don't know if I would go that far, but I think it would. I think we have a vested interest in this country. We have contributed to this country, economically, culturally, socially, artistically, on every level of this country. There's Black influence. Okay. So I don't know why we would walk away from that right that we should have to full citizenship in this country. Now, with regard to Africa, I would love to see collaboration between Americans in the United States and Africans in Africa. I would love to see Black people doing business in Africa. I would love to see Black people, because Africa is being exploited by everybody across the planet. It would be beautiful if we could have business relationships with them, and because we could go there and we would be received quite well, at least in my experience, I would say.
Yeah. I'm following Akon. He's building out Akon City, and I'm like, wow.
I love it.
Yeah, and when you listen to his history, he was born in the States, but then sent right back to Senegal. So he has dual citizenship. And his whole thing is, what we're talking about is a lot of, social capitalism. And I didn't even know there was such a thing until I started researching about Akon. And it was like, this is what I'm saying, like the narrative has been skewed, right? It's kind of like you have to pick a side. Either you're a socialist or you're a capitalist, but there's social capitalism. And it doesn't have to be not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, expound on that for me just a little bit.
So it's deep. So like what you're doing is just think about it as doing a not-for-profit, all the same initiatives, all the same outcomes, but it's all for profit. And all that profit goes back into your community. It goes back into your people, right? It goes back, and you can see it happening in different neighborhoods. Go to Koreatown, go to Chinatown. The money circulates. And that's how people are migrating. Some of them have children, first generation Americans, but they have dual citizenship. So they might bring their kids to America to learn, but then they bring that money right back to China or to India. Right. How many Indian doctors do you see are very successful in this country, and how poor is India, right?
Right.
So it's like, and then Obama's dad, he came to America to learn and study, and then he went right back. You know what I mean?
Kenya. Right.
So that's exactly what it was, right? And Akon is expanding on that himself as somebody who was born into poverty in Senegal, right? Actually, he was born in the U.S. And then going back to Senegal, extreme poverty. What we think is poverty here, he thinks is the 5-star hotel, the projects.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so the social capitalism is like, he has an initiative now, and I'm following this guy because I'm like, wow, he's got the blueprint, right? And what he's done is he's been able to light up Africa. He's got a deal where he's using solar panels to light up Africa. And there's no electricity in Africa. In a lot of the countries, there's no electricity. And that's one of his initiatives, Akon Lighting Africa. And he's inviting Black Americans that are going through this, social unrest to come and have their cake and eat it too in Africa. He's saying that it can be done, and they're welcoming people to do it. So I'm looking at that too, because in Haiti, it's really tough. And I kind of want to, I want to build here, but then I also want to go back and contribute to Haiti. You know what I mean?
Right. But we could do it all.
We could do it all. So that was the reason for that second question. You went deep. So I said, you know what? He's probably open to talking about this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think that's commendable on Akon's part, man. That's huge.
Yeah.
And he was born in St. Louis, too.
Huh? Say it again?
I think he was born in St. Louis, Akon.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, he went to school with Nelly. As a matter of fact, you're right. Him and Nelly went to the same school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think that would be something great. I think that would be something great that Black people could do here. Or better yet, take some of those kids that we were talking about that are trying to get involved in technology from these underserviced communities and send them over there to learn how to do that. That would be brilliant, right?
Like a foreign exchange program.
Exactly. I studied abroad when I was in law school, and it was like a life-changing experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, my man. Now, I got to ask you this. Last one, right? You me hands down. Are you a big meat-eating guy, or are you still doing that smoked salmon that you're so well known for?
Well, I'm always going to be on smoked salmon. I'm going to be honest with you. That's always going to be one of my favorites, man. I love smoked salmon.
Yeah.
But I'll eat a steak here and there. I'll definitely eat a steak.
Yeah. You got to go hit up Peter Luger's at some point.
Oh, that would be great. I'm with it.
Yeah. Definitely. Let's get to your bottom line, my man. What is your bottom line? What is that reoccurring truth for you? That no matter what, any setback, anything that takes you away off your targets, off your goals, you go back to this truth and it gets you right on your path. It serves as rocket fuel for you. What is that? What is your bottom line?
There's no excuse to not work hard. That's it. I mean, I think you can, and I take that, I'm taking that from Derek Jeter. I heard him say one time that he wasn't the best hitter. He wasn't the fastest runner. He wasn't, he didn't even have the best glove, but for some reason he's known as a great baseball player. And he said it's because I always played hard. And that's my bottom line is whatever you do, play hard. Like, play as hard as you can. And then if no matter what happens, you can't be disappointed, because if it doesn't go your way, you did everything you could and it just wasn't meant to happen.
Yeah. Go hard, right?
Go hard.
Yeah.
Or go home.
Yeah. Go hard or go home.
That's it.
My man. All right. Where do people find you, Rich?
You can find me on my website, www.washington-at-law.com. You can find me on Twitter @WashingtonAtLaw. And I just started a YouTube page, Washington Law PC. And I'm on Facebook, Law Offices of Richard J. Washington PC. So I'm trying to be as many places as I can right now.
He's everywhere. He's all over the place. If you need Richard, you know where to get him. Get him online, right? And he's expanding throughout the city also, focusing on labor and employment law, defense, criminal law, and every now and then some real estate deals, right?
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while. It doesn't take up too much of your time.
Only if it's you.
Only if it's me. All right, my man. Yeah. Right. Thanks for taking the time, Rich. This was a really insightful conversation, right?
Yo, thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you again. And,
Definitely.
I really like the podcast, man. It's been great. I've watched a few before I got here, and I'm just excited that you let me come on, man. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you, man. Thanks a lot for taking the time. And we could probably do one sometime in the future when, our schedule opens up, so we could really expand on a lot of these topics that we touched on, right? I think
Absolutely.
it should definitely be
Anytime.
an ongoing conversation. We should have more of these conversations,
I
right?
love it.
Definitely. This was the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line.